The American Revolution, a timeline. The American Revolution is one of the most significant events in American history. Spanning over a period of just over a decade, it was a time of great change for the United States. This timeline will take you on a journey from the beginning of the revolution to its dramatic conclusion. You will learn about the events that led up to the revolution, the battles that were fought, and the important people and moments involved. By following this timeline, you will have a better understanding of what happened during the American Revolution and why it is such an important event in American history. 1. 1775 The American Revolution begins. On April 12, 1775, colonists in Boston, Ma, threw tea into the harbor in defiance of a British tax. This event started the American Revolution. The British responded by imposing a tax on all goods imported into the colonies. The colonists were angry and decided to rebel. The revolution began with the Boston Tea Party and eventually led to independence from Great Britain. The American Revolution was a long and hard-fought battle, but it was ultimately successful. The British were forced to give up their colonies, and the American Declaration of Independence was drafted. 2. 1776 The Boston Tea Party. On December 16, 1773, the British Parliament passed the Tea Act, which allowed the British East India Company to sell tea in the colonies without paying taxes. The Boston Tea Party was a protest against the Tea Act. In March 1774, a group of colonists disguised as Indians boarded the Dartmouth, a British tea ship, and dumped 342 chests of tea into the harbor. This event is often called the first act of the American Revolution. In May 1775, the British evacuated Boston after the Battle of Lexington and Concord. The Battle of Bunker Hill was fought on June 17. The British were defeated and the Revolutionary War began. In October 1775, the British evacuated Boston after the Battle of Yorktown. The Treaty of Paris was signed in 1783 and the Revolutionary War ended. The American Revolution was a time of great change for the colonies. It led to the creation of the United States of America. 3. 1777 The Battle of Saratoga. The Battle of Saratoga was a pivotal battle in the American Revolution, and it determined the fate of the colonies. The British were able to gain a decisive victory over the colonists, and this helped to solidify British control over the colonies. The Battle of Saratoga began on October 17, 1777, and it lasted for 3 days. The British were able to achieve a victory because they were able to take advantage of the terrain and the weather. The British were also able to use their numerical advantage to their advantage. The Battle of Saratoga has been cited as one of the most important battles in the American Revolution, and it has been called the turning point of the war. 4. 1778 The Battle of Yorktown. 1778 was a pivotal year in the American Revolution. After a long and arduous war, British forces were finally pushed out of North America. The Battle of Yorktown was the largest and most decisive battle of the war, and it was a victory for the Americans. 1781 The Stamp Act. In 1781, the British Parliament passed the Stamp Act, which taxed printed materials in the colonies. The colonists saw the act as an attempt to gain more power for the British government. They revolted, and the revolution was underway. 1775 The Boston Tea Party. In 1775, the British Parliament passed the Tea Act, which allowed the British East India Company to ship tea into the colonies. The colonists saw the act as an attempt to gain more power for the British government. They revolted, and the revolution was underway. 1783 The Treaty of Paris. The Treaty of Paris ended the American Revolution, and the British ceded much of North America to the Americans in exchange for recognition of the United States as a sovereign nation. The war had cost the British a great deal of money, and they were eager to put it behind them. 1775 The Boston Tea Party. In 1775, the British Parliament passed the Tea Act, which allowed the British East India Company to ship tea into the colonies. The colonists saw the act as an attempt to gain more power for the British government. They revolted, and the revolution was underway. 1783 The Treaty of Paris. The Treaty of Paris ended the American Revolution, and the British ceded much of North America to the Americans in exchange for recognition of the United States as a sovereign nation. The war had cost the British a great deal of money, and they were eager to put it behind them. 1783 The Battle of Bunker Hill.